Hi, my name is Atticus Barron, and today we're going to have a video that explores the mental health toll on doctors and ER nurses, ER doctors and ER nurses, and why the system meant to save them or help them often falls short. The ER is a very unpredictable place. It's chaos, it's panic, it's life and death, and often people walking in there don't get to walk out. And the people who work there, the doctors and the nurses, are expected to stay calm, focused, and in control no matter what. But what happens when they go home? Because the truth is, we will always talk about saving patients, but we don't talk about the people who save them. Doctors and nurses are constantly switching between patients, split-second life or death decisions. It doesn't stop. There are long shifts, overnight hours, barely any breaks. They don't get time to process before they have to help another person. I'd like you to imagine going from helping someone survive a traumatic injury to straight into helping somebody else. Maybe with the very same injury who won't make it out alive, unfortunately. There's no pause, no reset. And over time, that'll build up and have an effect on somebody. Not physically, but mentally. A lot of people assume burnout just means being tired. But for ER workers, it goes way deeper than that. We're talking about anxiety, depression, and even symptoms similar to PTSD. Studies have shown that burnout rates in emergency medicine are some of the highest in healthcare. And that's not surprising. Seeing trauma over and over and over again changes you. Some doctors and nurses start to feel emotionally numb, like having things shut things off just to keep doing their job. Others carry everything with them. The faces, the moments, the outcomes they wish they could have changed. And what makes it worse is something called moral injury. That's when they know what a patient needs, but they can't provide it. Maybe there aren't enough resources, not enough time, or maybe the system just doesn't allow it. So they're stuck making impossible decisions and then living with those decisions after the shift ends. Maybe a year later, maybe a month later, they will always live with that decision that they made. So you'd think with all of this, there would be a strong support system in place. But there aren't, at least not enough. One of the biggest reasons is stigma. In the medical field, asking for help is seen as a weakness. Some doctors are even afraid that admitting their mental health struggles, where they fall short, could affect their career and their license. Instead of speaking up, they stay quiet. They push through. They convince themselves they're fine, even though they're not. And on top of that, hospitals are often understaffed and overworked. There's this constant pressure to just keep pushing, keep going, keep performing. There's no time to stop and say, hey, I'm not okay. And that doesn't affect them, it affects everyone, their patients, their coworkers, their family. Because when people taking care of their patients are mentally exhausted, overwhelmed, or even burned out, that impacts the level of care they give. And more importantly, it's not fair. Think about your job. Think about my job. I can say, hey, I'm not doing okay mentally, and they'll give me a break. They'll give me a couple weeks break. But these doctors can't do it because they're understaffed and overworked. We expect these people to show up every day and handle the hardest moments of people's lives. But we don't give them the same level of care in return. So what needs to change? First, mental health support needs to be normalized in healthcare. Not optional, not hidden, something expected. Regular check-ins, access to therapy, real, consistent support systems. Second, hospitals need to address this overworking and staffing issue. Because no amount of self-care can fix being overworked or overwhelmed. And finally, this culture has to shift. Doctors and nurses shouldn't have to feel like their career is going to suffer. Like they need to be strong, they need to push through, and this is what, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of residency trained them. Because real strength isn't ignoring the problem, isn't pushing through. It's being able to say, I need help, and actually getting it. Because at the end of the day, ER doctors and nurses are there for people at their lowest moments. Maybe it's time we need to start showing up for them too. But even when we start to recognize that there's this issue with the system set in place, it still won't get the attention it deserves. And we are part of the problem. We put these ER doctors and nurses on pedestals. We call them heroes. And that's not a bad thing. But there's this stigma to heroes that they don't struggle, they don't fail, they don't fall. I mean, how many times have you seen Superman fail to save people, right? But they aren't just professionals. They aren't just heroes. They're people. They're just like me and just like you. They have lives outside of the hospital. They have families, relationships, and responsibilities, just like everyone else. And when they're constantly exposed to stress and trauma, it doesn't just stay at work. It follows them home, shows up in their sleep, their relationships, and the way they see the world. Some doctors struggle with insomnia. Every time they close their eyes, they still see the traumatic shifts that they've had. Others deal with anxiety that doesn't go away when their shift ends. And over time, that kind of pressure can lead to serious long-term effects, including high rates of burnout, depression, and even healthcare workers leaving the profession entirely. I myself, as a aspiring doctor, I can't really see myself doing anything else. I couldn't imagine the amount of burnout and pain that they go through. And right now my heart is so filled with that fire to want to be a doctor that I just couldn't imagine the kind of difficulty and struggle and stress and anxiety that this job takes on somebody to burn that fire out of them completely and make them do something else maybe a little bit easier, because it's so hard for them to not only get the help that they need, but to get proper help and get better. Like, you can see a therapist as many times as you'd like, but if you're not making any strides or it's a bad therapist, it's never going to work. And all these burnout, depression, and leaving the profession entirely creates another problem, because it's not the new ones leaving as fast as the experienced doctors and nurses are. And that puts so much more pressure on the residents and the interns. And it just continues the cycle. Less staff, more stress. Just keeps going and going. And you're going to throw in worse conditions in there. And it just repeats on an endless cycle of doom. There's something important to understand about ER specifically. Unlike other areas of medicine, like dermatology, not cosmetology, but plastic surgery, pediatrics, ER workers don't always get closure. They might stabilize a patient, but they don't know what happens next, because when they stabilize them, they ship them off to another doctor who has more time to take care of them and is more specialized to what they need. Or, in the worst case, they might lose someone and immediately have to move to the next case. Just like we said, there's no time to process, no time to reflect, just that constant movement, like a clock that won't stop, just keeps pushing them forward. And that lack of closure makes everything feel unfinished. Like moments that just stack on top of each other without ever being resolved. That's exhausting, not just physically, but emotionally. Another issue is that many hospitals do offer some form of mental health resource. Excuse me. But they're not often used. It's not because people don't need them. It's because, like we mentioned before, they don't feel safe using them. They feel judged. Their fear of judgment, or a fear of being seen different, or even a fear like I said, they could impact their future opportunities. So even when help exists, it's not always accessible in a real, practical way. And that's something that needs to change immediately. Because support doesn't just mean offering resources, but it means creating an environment where people feel comfortable using them. Where asking for help isn't seen as a risk, but as something normal and something necessary. And if we really want to address the issue, it's going to take more than just small changes. It's going to take a shift in how the entire system operates. Hospitals need to prioritize not just patient outcomes, but staff well-being, because the two are interlinked. You can't expect high-quality care from people who are constantly overwhelmed and mentally exhausted. It's not realistic, and it's not sustainable. There also needs to be more open conversations about mental health in medicine, and especially in that ER room, that emergency room. Not just behind closed doors, but publicly, we need to be standing behind our doctors as they get help, so that future doctors and nurses know what they're getting into, so that the current ones know that they're not alone. Because right now, a lot of people are still struggling silently. And silence doesn't and won't fix anything. Awareness is the first step, but action is the most necessary step to create change. That action has to come from both individuals and institutions like healthcare, or like hospitals and healthcare and insurance. Like I said, from hospitals, from leadership, and from culture of medicine as a whole. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about improving work conditions, but it's about protecting the people who dedicate their lives to saving and protecting others. And if we continue to ignore their mental health, we're not failing them. We're not just failing them, because we are failing them in so many ways, but we're failing the entire system. We're failing the people who are walking in that emergency room. They could have walked out, but if we didn't fail them, they might never walk out. So next time you think about the emergency room and the people working inside of it, it's worth asking a simple question. Not just how do they save lives, but what's it costing them to do it?